Hello, everyone, and welcome back to episode I don't even know of the Crag Chat Climbing Podcast. Yeah, I've really fallen off the wagon here, but life happens. We're just we're rolling with it. Today, I have Lizzy Ellison with me, and I'm really excited. Lizzy and I became friends on Instagram, I think. Lizzy, do you remember how we became friends?
Yeah, so you followed me a long time, I know. So I recognized your handle, and every now and then you replied to my stories over the years. And then you said something at some point that was really funny, and I was like, this person is just spitting fire. Every story reply is hilarious. Why don't I ever speak to them? And so I started talking to you, and it turns out you're awesome. So I think that was great. Thank you for making me laugh so many times over the years that I was like, why am I not friends with this person?
Well, I really appreciate that. And same to you. I was telling Jed last night, I was like, literally nothing Lizzy sends me is never not a laugh out loud, or at least a nose laugh.
I'm so glad my humor hits for you. Definitely doesn't for everyone.
Yeah, same. So Lizzy is a climber. That's probably how you know her, but she's many other things, and that's one of the reasons that I love her so much. Is I really like meeting people that don't just put themselves in a box and confine themselves to one space, especially on social media where it's easy to do that, and I really admire you doing that, Lizzy. So Lizzy recently went to South Africa on a climbing trip, and she had an encounter with some baboons.
Oh, the baboons.
Do you want to recount that story a little bit for us?
For sure. Let's see. It was the middle of the day. Got to set the scene. It was very normal. I was at home climbing that day, and I had decided to rest. I love animals, and I'm one of those people, you drive past a cow, I have to be like, look, there is a cow, even though we drive past the same cow every day. So anyways, I was doing some dishes at the place we were staying in South Africa, and I looked out the window, and there were just baboons walking around. So naturally, I was very excited. So I grabbed my camera, and I decided to take some pictures, and I made eye contact with one. And I was like, oh, hello there. And
that was your mistake.
Seem very happy. And then I looked to my right, and there's a window right next to me, and there's just a baboon fucking pressed up against the window, and I was like, what the and so I saw the curtains because I started to get freaked out, and then these baboons just through the window. I couldn't put a curtain over the window in the kitchen that I made eye contact with this one, and I'm looking out that window, and they all just start and start approaching. I was like, what is happening? So anyways, then I Googled what to do in case of a baboon attack. I know different animals require different things. There's some bears you play dead, there are some you throw rocks, So Google was like, yeah, they'll end you. And I was like, oh, okay. So I found a room with no windows, because now at this point, all the baboons are pressed against all the windows and just knocking on them. And so I just went into there's a room with a shower with one tiny window that is kind of blurred. And I was like, this is my best bet, because I wasn't going to go out the front door because there were a bunch outside the front door. So I sat in the bathroom and was just listening to crashing, and I hear them on the roof, and then I just hear thuds, and it just jumped down the chimney, and then just started throwing plates everywhere. I was so scared. I was texting Paul. I was like, come home. He's like, I'm an hour hike away. But I guess we got in touch with the person who owns the house. And then she came by and just had some of her staff just open the doors, throw rocks at baboons, and they all just banged on the windows to scare the baboons that were inside out. They told me the coast was clear. So then I opened the door, and then right in front of me, there is a baboon, just a couple feet away, holding a ciabatta bread. And then he all at once sees me throws the ciabatta and shits on a fresh pile of clean laundry and then just like hides in that room. And I was like, oh, okay. So I just like kind of like tiptoed out, and I was terrified. They were huge. And like, I don't know, I would love to die in an unconventional way, but like baboon attack seems unnecessarily painful. But that triggered a sea of baboon attacks in Rocklands this year, actually. Yeah, so another neighboring house, they had to get a grate over their chimney because the baboons went in their house. And then they tried to come back to that same house. The person messaged me in the morning and they scared them away and they just ran into a neighboring house. They watched them run into, like, because they had their door open just coincidentally. And then I know Keenan was out there, and him and whoever he was climbing with, I don't know, we aren't like close, I don't remember, but I remember hearing that his crew was like charged by a couple baboons one day, like they started chasing them, which that's a story I need to get now that I think of it. I mean, I just like cried in the bathroom. He was actually charged. So
well, I mean, yeah. I wouldn't discount, that's still a pretty scary experience, but yeah.
And you really funny in hindsight because we have so much food. We had apples, bananas, like so much produce just like out. And the baboons specifically ate the 12 ciabattas that the woman very judgmentally gave us at the grocery store that are all individually wrapped. And I was like, oh, all the food. So that was funny. And then they offered to give me a gun. They were just like, do you want one? And I was like, I will fall. Can you imagine, like, if I shot a gun? Like, that's not for me personally. Yeah, I would like mess up and hurt myself. So there's the baboon story.
Yeah,
I think it's better as a written piece.
So yeah, no, I think that you told it flawlessly. I mean, you did a really good job writing up the story. I really loved reading it, so I just wanted to get a retelling. And I know that this is kind of cheesy, but there's the last line, and I've told you this, the last line of it says, "You live an unlikely life." Can you talk a little bit more about like your life? And because you say that your life is quite unlikely or quite unconventional. Yeah, I'm just curious to like learn a little bit more.
Really, it's been a weird life since the start. So I'm the youngest of 5. My parents are very religious, but they're interesting for religious people. They're like strangely liberal. Growing up with the parents I have, I feel like I was raised to think just like really analytically about things and like philosophize from a young age. I'm personally not religious at all, and most of my siblings aren't either, but I feel like that added a layer of strangeness to my life. I have multiple learning disabilities, and school was always a really difficult thing for me. I graduated a couple years early from high school purely out of hatred. I'm not like smart. I just wanted to be out of there, and I moved out when I was 15. I've done just like a lot of weird side gigs through my life, and professional climbing will take you some weird places. I just feel like I just don't really know how I created the life I have, but there's just nothing about like start to now has been traditional in the slightest. And now I've got my nice rare disease to add to the unlikeliness, and even with that, like the condition I have almost always shows up in children under 2 years old, and it's almost always a cancer that's causing it. And for me, we believe it's post-infectious, and I'm obviously a little older than 2, so no fucking way. So yeah, I stand by that. It's been a weird life, and we can break apart any phase of it and it just gets weirder. I don't know how I got here, but I'm here.
So there's this line in this song and it says, how rare and beautiful it is to even exist. And I always just like go back to that line. Like, it's just like very weird that we all exist here, but very beautiful. And I recently found out that I say the word absurd wrong. I say it absurd, like with a Z.
Oh, uh-huh.
But I think that's kind of just what life is pretty absurd. You just got back from a trip to South Africa where you survived the baboons. What else did you do while you were there? Yeah, tell me about South Africa.
Absolutely. Well, this was an interesting trip. So I have been struggling with a hip injury for quite some time now. I'm probably going to need surgery on it. So that's a whole other thing. But anyways, going out on this trip, it's definitely one of the biggest climbing trips I have gone on, and it's also one of the only ones I have gone on with such a debilitating injury. I went there with really no expectations. I also just have stepped back from climbing a lot the last couple of years and been focusing on comedy and just other realms of life. I think a lot of people have since COVID. So this trip was interesting because I was not exactly prepared the way I normally would be. And I also had started studying software engineering before the trip. And so my plan on this trip was mostly to focus on school, climb during the day, school in the evening, and hopefully be applying for some jobs in the tech field when I got back. Yeah, so it started out with a very different intention. And being out there, I did a lot more moderate climbing than I typically would on a big trip. I didn't really lock into any projects. And that was a really cool, special thing for me because just not having so many expectations, I feel like I got to really see the area in a much more well-rounded way. I mean, anyone going to a place like Rockland that's so packed with climbing, I would definitely recommend your first time somewhere, do not project like anything unless that's really just what brings you joy and that's your thing. But I at least really loved just doing a lot of everything rather than focusing in on any specific climbs. But I would love to go back one day and to try to do that, try to focus on climbs that push my limits more specifically and do a bit more projecting. I definitely enjoyed both aspects of climbing, but yeah. Trying to think what else happened out there. There was a baboon. I went surfing. I almost drowned in El Salvador, and this was my first time in the ocean since then. I was like a little freaked out, but once I actually got in the ocean, I calmed down a lot. So it's always nice to revisit dramatic experiences and like kind of like rewrite them.
Yeah.
I said always nice. That's such a lie. Sometimes nice to do that. In this case, it was. I'm a horrible surfer, just like that's super not my speeds, but I had a good time doing that. And Paul was a great teacher. He loved surfing and took me to Muizenberg, which is like apparently the best place to learn in the world. And it makes sense. The waves are small and consistent, and it's just sand. It's not like you're not going to cut yourself up on rock or anything. So I got to just eat it again and again very safely at the Gumby beach, and it was really fun. Everyone had longboards. Everyone was just getting pummeled by whitewater, and it was hilarious.
Love it. Yeah. Love it. Yeah. Something you said that you went into this trip with like no expectations. There's definitely something to be said for like trying hard and like committing to stuff. But one of my friends once told me that happiness is your expectations minus reality. So the closer you can have like your expectations to realistically what might happen on a trip, the happier you may be. And I think that's something that's really difficult on a lot of climbing trips, honestly, because as you know, they're just so unpredictable. Even if you have like a set plan, doesn't necessarily always go that way. Yeah. So yeah. Well, I'm glad that you experienced South Africa maybe in like a different light than you would have potentially. It's always like a cool experience to be able to do that.
Yeah, if I went at a different point in my life, like it's funny, I've actually planned to go to South Africa, I think like 3 or 4 previous times, and it didn't work out for one reason or another. I was going to go 1 year quite a long time ago with the guy I was dating at the time, and then we like broke up. So I was like, cool, you go climb the rocks, I'm gonna stay here. And then there was like, gosh, Paul and I had planned like a couple times, but there was COVID, building the house, and yeah, it's just so funny because if it had worked out at any of these other times, those were times in my life where I was a lot more concerned with performance, and I don't think I would have I wouldn't have had the same experience, obviously, but I don't know what it would have looked like, and I may not have gotten nearly as much out of it.
Yeah, that's a cool take. You mentioned climbing with Paul. I'm curious. So some people really love like a solo climbing trip. Some people like myself, I have gone on all of one solo climbing trips, and the whole time I was like having fun, but I just felt very like, what? Like, I don't know, it just didn't seem like fun to me. Where do you fall on that spectrum of like being alone on a climbing trip versus being in a group?
It really depends on so many things. Again, like kind of going back to having like lots of learning disabilities, I feel like I experienced the world in a very high contrast scope, and it varies a lot. I struggle with like auditory processing stuff and sensory overload, as well as like extreme understimulation. And so I'm just a person that varies a lot. There are some days where I love just being alone, doing my thing. And then there are some times where like I really thrive with the energy of a big group of people. And so for me, when it comes to like planning a trip, I always try to make sure that there are days I could be alone and that I'm not like completely dependent on others. Just I do my best to create flexibility for myself in that regard. But I definitely find joy in both sides of it. I love my alone time, but I also really feed off of the energy of others.
Yeah, I feel like that's honestly like a really good way to be, because then you can kind of like pick and choose what's going to be right. Jed has a saying that he always like, I'll ask him what we should do and he'll be like, let's just do what feels right at the time. And it's kind of like a really easy way to just like ease my like anxiety about future things. Like I'm like, oh, we're just gonna do what feels right at the time. Like that's like a concrete thing for me.
Is this something that eases your anxiety, or is this a vent? Like, I guess we'll do that. Like,
oh no, it actually helps for real.
It does. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I wasn't sure.
Yeah. Sometimes uncertainty around climbing trips can cause a lot of anxiety, just because like I know for me personally, at least back in Ohio, Jed and I were always kind of the ones that like got the gang together to go climbing, and we did a lot of like the planning and things. And when you're like looking at that, as you know, like you kind of have to like play to what everyone wants to do on the trip, and when the groups get too big it can be really difficult. But then if it's like just him and I, it's like not always like the most fun. Like, you know, you have to have a balance. So yeah, the other thing that I'm like curious about is so I'm a person that like when I'm climbing, it really varies, but like when I'm climbing, if my belayer is like joking around too much with like people, it can cause me to get like really stressed because I feel like they're not paying attention to me on the wall, and in the event that I fell, like maybe would not catch me, even though generally they're paying attention. So are you a person that like likes a lot of silence, or do you like a lot of encouragement? Like I know some people get distracted by encouragement.
Again, I just vary. There are some times where I'm like, everyone shut up, please. Like, or I will die. And then there are other times where I feed off of it, and there's unfortunately like no rhyme or reason to it. My brain is just like so temperamental, and it wants what it wants when it wants it, and it's just like I just have to communicate with the people around me about that. But I find I only get really weird about it when I am doing something like high ball bouldering. Yeah, if I'm doing like high ball bouldering and there's a no fall zone and I need to like really be in my space, I always make sure to tell people if it's like not the time to say words to me.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like both. It just kind of depends on the day. I just have to communicate really clearly with people I climb with, because I do get really affected by those things sometimes in a negative way. And also, I think it's a hard and fast rule for me. Like if you're belaying me and you're talking to someone, unless I'm like on a top rope in the gym, that will really irritate me. I just feel like that's really careless and like kind of rude of people. But I also get why it happens, and I've totally talked to people while I'm belaying before.
Yeah.
And I need to. I try not to, because I do know that bothers me. So with you
Yeah.
there, the
It's
attentive
like
belayers world, like.
Yeah, it's so interesting because like I feel like, at least for me personally, like if I'm like, yeah, on a top rope or like climbing something that doesn't feel hard to me, it's like, yeah, talk away, like who cares? But if I'm like really trying hard, it's like, oh, I'm putting so much effort into this thing, and like you're a part of it with me, but like you're not. It feels like the effort is not, and I know it's not even a real thing. It's just like a mental thing for me. Like I know that my belayer
But that
generally
doesn't mean
is,
it's not
yeah,
real.
yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah, that's very true. You've obviously gone to like a fairly high level of climbing ability. What's like a piece of technique that you like really struggled with and you had to like work to really improve?
I'd say like my big thing is compression. That's something I really struggle with climbing, and it's interesting because it's not even that I lack compression strength, but rather my brain doesn't intuitively engage my muscles to squeeze when I climb. So I find if I am doing a climb that requires squeezing, I have to very consciously tell myself to squeeze, or I won't do the climb. And being able to keep track of beta and like tell myself in such a direct way what to do is very, very difficult for me. Just, gosh, my brain has like a goldfish. I will tell myself, I'll be like, you're going to hit this hold and you're going to take a breath. You will, like,
And then you're like,
breathe on that hold. And then I get on the wall and I immediately, I don't take a single breath. I completely do different beta than I've done 50 times in a row. Like, this is a thing for me. My brain's a little dysfunctional, but luckily it intuitively tends to climb with good technique. And that is something I am just lucky with. But squeezing is just so difficult because I have to stay present and tell myself to squeeze, or I cannot do boulders that require that type of engagement.
yeah, that's really interesting. So Jed and I were talking about basically your progress, like recovering from what you've been going through recently. I know that you've been chronicling, is that a word? Chronicling? Sure. Your journey, like getting back into climbing a little bit. I'm curious, do you feel right now, does your body still like remember a lot of the techniques, and it's just that like your tremors make it difficult to like put them into practice? Do you feel like your strength has deteriorated? Like what specifically, because you're still climbing at quite a high level?
Oh, well, thank you. Gosh, it's been a journey. I mean, I was like borderline a vegetable for like a month. Like I couldn't roll over in bed. So like I have had to reteach myself everything. And when I'm on the wall, there's like there's like my logical brain, which, you know, I don't have like memory loss. I remember what climbing should be, but then my physical memory, all my muscle memory is just like gone. And so I'm having to like kind of rebuild that book. I've gotten really used to like walking again, for example. I'm doing great with that. Like I'll periodically try to do something so I'll feel like normal for a moment, and then I'll like jog a couple steps and like try to bend over and pick something up and like not even think about it, and then it'll just like fall over, and I'm like, oh wait, I can't do things like normal. I forgot. And so I'm experiencing a lot of that climbing where I'll like try to put my foot in a certain position or something, and my logical brain remembers what that is like and expects it to feel the same, and then it just like doesn't happen the same way. That's a really that's something that has been getting better, though. As I practice, it does seem that I am retaining things pretty quickly without the same type of repetition that it took to initially learn the tasks. So yeah, I would say climbing, where I'm at right now, the things that like really hold me back and are different are when there is a new movement that I haven't done since the being hospitalized. I do get very not nauseous, especially on balance oriented stuff, and then the tremors can be really aggressive some days. Also, just like at certain times during the day, it really varies. Sometimes I seem really normal, but the more I exert myself, the more I tremor. And so once I've done a couple climbs, I start to get like, all climbers get like the Elvis legs sometimes, you know. I just get that, but like everywhere. And
that's
I'm like,
so funny.
oh, fun. One thing I've noticed is the first times I tried to do like any like dynamic type movement, like kind of like just like a dead point, my hands, like I would like get there, and then I'm like, okay, momentum, do the thing. And like it just like wouldn't quite come out right. And then I would like get my hand above the hold, and like, let's say this is a hold, I would like get here, and then it would just like shake. And then I'm like, grab. To like do the grab. And then also so strength, my strength is less than it was, a big thing. That's a big part of what's holding me back as well. I lost a pretty substantial amount of weight in the hospital just because I was, again, like a vegetable and far too nauseous to eat healthy amounts. And so I'm really working on feeding myself a lot and trying to build back all that muscle. But I am not currently like at a healthy place for myself, and I need to get back there. So
yeah, I think that's like you approach it with such a healthy mindset. I know it's like such a cliche thing to say, but I find it really inspiring, like the mindset that you approach it with. And I think that we can all like learn something from that. Okay, so Lizzy and I have taken a small break and had kind of like a really like tangential conversation.
Yeah, it got really good.
It got really good. You guys missed out. Dang. Let's talk about funny stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think that for those listening or viewing, Lizzy and I send each other memes almost every day. It's amazing. Something that I've always wanted to try but never have is improv. Not so much stand-up comedy. I do think stand-up comedy is awesome. I am more like, I love the idea of being put on the spot, and I kind of have this theory that like everything in life is improv. Like if you think about it, like we're just consistently doing that. So like you're really into it. I'm curious like how'd that happen?
Okay, so this actually goes back to when I like almost drowned in El Salvador. So a lot less funny, unfortunately, that time. But so I'll get through the mopey dramatic part quick so we can have fun.
Yeah, we don't.
But but I was on a trip in El Salvador and I got stuck in like just this insane rip current. And I thought I was gonna drown. And you hear about like these like life flash before your eye moments. And I didn't have that. I just had the thought, I wish I had more fun with it being life. And obviously I lived. And then I had to confront that. I was like, that's depressing. Like, that's so sad. And that totally changed my life. So I got home. I had been in a really dark place for quite a long time. I remember I had to do like a bunch of improv exercises in drama classes that I took in high school. And I just always had a lot of fun with that. And I remembered seeing a sign for like some improv class in Denver one time. There was just like one of those like little chalkboard signs months previous. So it like kind of planted that seed. And when I was thinking about this moment in El Salvador, I like really thought, okay, more fun. What does that even really mean to me? And the big thing that came to my mind was my family. We're a large group. We're so dysfunctional and we make each other laugh so hard every time we're all together. And I've never seen people laugh like the Ellisons when we unite. And so I like really soaked that in, and I was like, man, if you can get to the point where you like pee yourself, like actually piss your pants laughing, no matter what stuff is going on in your life for that moment, you're fine. Like, you are okay. And I saw there was just like a drop-in class at like this really small comedy club. And so I was like, okay, I'm just going to do that. And I laughed a lot and it was really refreshing. And that's actually, I ended up taking a stand-up comedy writing class at that comedy club, which I never had intention to get into stand-up. I just was trying to laugh more, and I got that and I felt better. And I was like, oh, like, I wonder how I give that to others. And I was thinking of it more as like a writing class. I'm a big writer. I'm pretty horrible at improv, but like I do what I can. But that's where I feel like my big strength is. And then we were taking the class and there was like a showcase at the end, and like we had to like perform our jokes in front of each other and everything. And I was like, oh crap, stand-up's part of the stand-up class. Like, I'm here because I need to be taught how to be funny. Like, I'm not ready, but I just kind of like jumped into it. When you get to fun perk of like immense depression and near-death experiences, you don't care anymore. Like, it really made me like step back from my just like ego, because like I feel like I had like just completely hit rock bottom. And so like when you get to that point, it's like you're immune from embarrassment. And it like allowed me to kind of like jump into all of that. And I found so much fulfillment in making others laugh and being able to talk about all kinds of things that are just observational and silly, but also things that mean a lot more to me. It's like just such a great way to like make lemonade out of lemons. And it really is writing comedy helps me process a lot of difficult feelings and put it out there in a new light. It gives me like power to like rewrite the experience in a way that I want to see it, and that I can share it with others, and like other people laughing and engaging with it is so healing. It gives me that connection. And so it's funny because this is like so not a funny conversation, but I promise sometimes I'm funny. I just have to write it out.
Yeah, it is pretty funny because I feel like you and I are jokes, and then you get us on a podcast and we're pretty serious.
And then we get all like existential.
Yeah. So I feel like honestly though, that's like, I feel like both you and I have like a side where we're like, everything is awesome, like this like funny ha ha ha. but I feel like maybe underneath it all, at least for me personally, I feel like I'm like honestly a really cynical person, like just about
Oh,
like,
I'm horribly pessimistic.
yeah. And I feel like, so I sent you a song, it's by Cheek Face a while back. It's
Mhm.
called Best Life. And I think we kind of like connected on the vibe that like, yeah, like life's short and we don't really know what we're doing, but like we're just trying our best, and like the best life is the one that you're living right now, even if that's like um being over in a corner just wanting someone to bring you food and leave you alone. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, great
That's
song.
what you get.
Yeah. Well, that's cool. I definitely am gonna try improv at some point. My new
Oh my gosh.
two of
If
my
you
new
come out,
bosses, they're both like really into improv. So maybe I'll have to do that and attempt to impress them, slash, like you said, embarrass myself, but not really, because it doesn't matter.
improv's great. I love seeing grown humans do it because it's almost all improv. Even like the best is kind of horrible, and it's
Yeah, it's
great.
just fun.
Like
It
if
just
you
seems fun.
can take yourself that not seriously, you're a pretty cool person probably. So
Yeah, yeah, that's a
yeah.
good way of putting it. So you mentioned that you like to write a lot.
Mhm.
I also really like to write. And I definitely want to do more of that as well. I used to love to read. Like I was that kid at recess that literally would like go outside but just sit and read my book. And I've
Huh.
I've really grown out of that, to be honest. Like I think I've probably read 2 or 3 books in the last couple years.
You know, that's not bad. I know people. I brought up reading to a friend once, and he told me he has never read a book. I was like, I can't. No. And Paul and I bring this up all the time. We love the man, but like every now and then there will
Never
be
read,
like
yeah.
silence for like 20 minutes. We're just doing our thing, and like one of us is like, he's never read a book. Out of nowhere. Greatest joys is that moment. He has no idea. Like I if he listens to this, I don't even know if he'll remember telling us that.
That's so
But,
funny. I have a similar story. I had this
so
friend.
anyways, you're doing great with 2 this year. Like
Oh, thank you. It's funny because
yeah.
like Jed and I have a similar story. We had a friend that roomed with this other friend, and like apparently she got mad because she only left like 3 eggs in the carton, and she was like, "Everyone knows that you have to leave at least 4. Everyone knows." Like what?
I
And
didn't know this.
and so Jed and I just like randomly, if it's like quiet or something, and like I don't know, we're just like sitting around, we'll be
That's
like,
your thing.
yeah, we'll be like, everyone knows you have to leave 4 eggs.
Everyone who watches this, like, please in the comments below, leave your weird things like that. Tell me
Please.
something super strange someone said to you one time that you think about often.
That you think about
Please.
often. And also,
Yeah.
I also don't think that my friend has any idea.
I think about this all the time. So um I wonder how many people's lives I am like a running inside joke in that I have no idea. Like there are totally things like quotes that people have said in my family that to this day we're just like mocking this 1 second
Yeah.
moment of some random person's life that we bring it up all the time. Like we have tons of jokes like that, and like somewhere out there's probably someone who has no idea who I am, but one time I said something really weird and they overheard it and they were like, and like they probably do it to this day. I really
Yeah.
hope. And gosh, if there is a God and I die and I get like to know all the things, that's one of my first requests is like, tell me how
Yeah.
many stories I don't know I'm a part of.
Yeah. I think about that all the time. Last night I actually had one of those moments. I shared this on Instagram, but I was meeting this girl, and her name, I'm not gonna say her name because I just met her. I'm climbing at the same gym as her, so I don't want to like embarrass her. But yeah, I met this girl, and I said, "Hi, I'm Courtney," and then she introduced herself, and her name started with an M, and I said, "Oh, I have an M on my to-do list," meaning like I have to do something with someone of the same name. And she said, well, if I show up on your Tinder, let me know. And I realized that I had literally
She thought you were hitting on her.
The first thing that came out of my mouth was, yeah, I have you on my to-do list. Like, that's the really first funny. thing
that's
that
like
I said
such
to
a
her.
douchey pickup line.
I know. And then afterwards I was just like, and I like, that's the way I feel, is I feel like she's gonna go home and I'm just gonna be like this running story of like, yeah,
I've been meaning to do one of your names.
Yeah. And I feel like it's just, and I was like, and then I went home and I was like, why did I word it like that? And then you can't undo it. You can't undo it.
I gotta say, I love the idea of like, you know, people talk about like body count and stuff. I love the idea of just having like a to-do list.
Like a to-do list?
Just like, I'm sorry, I need to find a Trevor. Like, I haven't had one. There must be, like, gosh, maybe if someone has like a really unique name, you're like, holy crap. Like, okay, I feel like, so this is like a weird thing. One of my friends growing up, her dad had a big, hot, wet crush on Carrie Underwood. And him and his wife had a deal. She had, I forgot who her male celebrity was, and he had Carrie Underwood. And they're like, if we get the chance, we have these people.
Fair.
And we're going to take it. And both of them are like, cool, they will never have sex with you. And
yeah. It's like just one
but
of
they
those
have
things.
this understanding. And I like I like the idea of just an exception. Like, if I find a Lufonda, I'm sorry, this like you're dating someone, you're on a first date with someone, you're like, here's my terms and conditions.
And conditions, Lufonda.
If I find a Lufonda, I'm taking that chance.
Oh man, that's so funny. Yeah, I don't know, there's this interview with Anna Kendrick. So she's on stage and they're like taking questions from the audience, and there's like this husband and wife couple in the audience, and they are basically like, I forget what the like question was, but the wife like raises her hand and they pick her and they're like, oh yeah, what's your question? And she goes, okay, I'm gonna ask my question, but like before I do, I just wanted to say that like you're on my husband's like list. Like, and his
so awkward.
Yeah, and her husband's face just like turns so red, and then Anna Kendrick, without missing a beat, goes, but like, am I on your list? Like, and it was just like, it was so funny. I actually like made a sticker on Redbubble that just says Anna Kendrick is on my list, and it actually is sold. It's amazing. It's one of my favorite things.
Yeah. I love the stuff you make. The campus cell capture. I need to order one.
Oh,
I forgot.
Thank you so much.
I like completely forgot. I'm gonna order one. Everyone. Courtney makes a shirt that says campus cell cap. That's the funniest thing I've ever heard. Please order it.
Do you know the story behind that?
No, I didn't think it needed one. I'm so ready.
Yeah. So there was a little boy that was like campusing on the boulders at my gym, and he's like, I don't know, like 8 or 10 or whatever age kids are, where you can't really tell, and all the ages. And so he's like campusing, and this little girl comes over and is like, stop campusing, you're gonna die. And he like hops down and he's like, I'm not gonna die. And he's like, plus, I would never do that if I was climbing out cap. Like, like just without, like, there was no previous discussion. And
that is like so how my brain works.
Yeah.
So I love it.
So I guess the last thing I just want to talk about is like, why Boulder? Like, I've been a lot of places in my life, and I want to go to a lot more. Why Boulder?
Why did I move here? Well, okay. So I was living in Utah. I had been dating this guy for like 3 years, so but long enough that like it definitely was a difficult breakup. We were like on and off the whole time too. So that was just like rocky, and we were broken up again. And I was like, I really don't want to date this person again. And somehow I will if I am in the same state. So I moved. And and also Colorado just seemed like a natural choice. You know, love climbing. There's a really big community here, and it's I think it's like maybe the only state where 365 days a year there is a boulder you can climb on. Like, there's some type of rock you can find, and that was like a big thing that appealed to me at the time, is moving here. a friend and I, we were in Red River Gorge, and we like road tripped out to Boulder and visited a mutual friend of ours. And so we were out here, and I just really liked it. And so it was really all those things together. I liked it. It felt like a good time for a change. I knew I would somehow end up dating this man again if I did not move, because I don't know how, that was our cycle, and I was going to break it. And no hate towards him too. I really doubt he'll find his way to this podcast, but if he does by some chance,
I don't know, I'm pretty popular.
Yeah. He's not a huge media person.
That was a joke for anyone that thinks I'm actually popular, by the way.
Okay, so side note, my grandpa, I think, thinks I'm like an A-list celebrity, which is really funny.
That's so cute.
He also doesn't
You are.
He does not know that his caps lock is on, and all of his emails are in all caps, and it's really funny. He's coming to visit in a few days.
And is he bringing his computer? No, he can't bring it. It's not a laptop.
Asked me, he's like, do you want like some companionship? Like, I could come out and visit. And I was like, that'd be awesome. I've been seeing you in forever. But like, I'm pretty dull. Like, I basically prepare food and like shower, and I go to bed, and like all of that
that's a very
takes up all my energy. And he was like, you got a TV? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, I'll be good. I was like, okay, Grandpa.
Check.
He needs a walker now too, so it's gonna be really funny. We're gonna be like both like,
excuse me, it's a
rollators. One time I taught him how to ripstick, and he didn't want to wear a helmet. And like, my grandma Susan was like, Dawn, put on a helmet. Like, you're gonna hurt yourself. And he goes, but Susan, I look dumb. And he fell into it.
Oh boy.
So anyways, I'm very nervous with him and his fresh new neurological problems, because if he falls, I'm just gonna be like all tremory trying to help him. We're gonna be
fine,
troubled together, and it's gonna be neat.
Yeah, I feel like you guys will like have a blast. I think. Yeah,
I'm so excited. He's mysterious, pretty removed from our lives. Every now and then, just like hey, in all caps,
you got a TV.
Like, and I enjoy him very much. It's so funny. I was on the phone with him yesterday, and we're mentally troubled, us Ellisons, and he has just visited a couple of my siblings, and they were talking about, we have a tendency as Ellisons to develop like panic attack disorders. My mom has claustrophobia, like there's like some social anxiety stuff. I am oddly very calm. I just am so dyslexic. But
that is a great quote. Oddly very calm. I'm just so dyslexic.
Well, my grandpa, I was on the phone with him, and he was like, I was talking to them, Lizzy, you would not believe the things I've experienced. They have experienced them too. I never told anyone. And I'm like, Grandpa, that's not how it works. It's not like you hear about panic attacks happening and go like, oh my God, what if I have one? Yeah. He thought if he never told my mom about panic attacks, that she would never have a panic attack. And same with as it goes. And like, these things tend to run in families.
Yeah.
That's like so not.
I mean, that would be great, but
I don't. Can you imagine if just no one ever told you about an illness? It didn't exist.
Yeah, that doesn't sound familiar at all.
Very Grandpa. I'm so excited. He's a hoot.
Yeah.
He's gonna be so fun to have out here.
Cool. Well, I'm really excited for you. I hope you have a great time. Thanks so much for being on Court Climbs. Yeah, I'm just stoked. And yeah, just thank you for existing. I really enjoy you.
Oh, I enjoy you. Thank you for having me.